we all identify in some way with different parts of what the arts are, right? So whether it be, books that we love to read, or music that we love to listen to, even music that we don't love to listen to, right? Like, we all engage with the arts on a daily basis. So if there's something that we all have in common, then why can't we use that to further things that we feel like children should know and be aware of?
In other subjects, it's very prescribed, right? It's very like, we're going to learn about this, and we're going to learn about it in the way that your dad may have learned about it, and your granddad may have learned about it, and your great-granddad may have. And it's one-sided. So you still have the perspective that Africa is one country, and they all live in huts, and it's a desert for the whole of Africa. So these are the shackles that we want to break. None pun intended, but these are the things that we want to break away from, those stereotypes, so that the children can see in an organic manner that this person, this musician, lived and was born in India, and this is what he is. He may have lived in a metropolitan area and played this type of music. It may not be traditional music that you think you hear in India, but this is what it's like to be there. It's not just this one size fits all. And I think
so is that breaking of stereotypes, which is so important for all of our anti-racist education, is that idea that they're not homogenized. It's so easy to, pick an African artist and pick and it just reinforces. So we think we're doing the right thing by putting the diversity there, but unless we're picking carefully about authenticity and about their lives, and it just being real artists, not just the one that shows the kind of art that we think we should be showing. And I think we're doing a good job of that. It's a project by Angelica Das, and she travels all over the world, and she takes really photos of people that all look kind of the same. So it's head and shoulders exactly the same in a square. And then she takes the pixel on the nose and sets that skin tone to the Pantone colour, and she sets the background as that. So when you see it, you just see all these blocks of colour with the person's face. And she goes to communities and does that there, and then she compares people with the same skin colour together. And it's fascinating to see the huge range of skin colours in a community, or to look at one skin colour and see how those people have come from all over the world, and people that you might look at and at first think they're very dark, but actually they're the same actual Pantone colour as other places. So what we did is we got all the children to draw them, first of all, have a go at mixing skin colours, which was really challenging for the children. And then there was all these discussions about, well, we're all just brown, just different shades of brown, different tones of brown and hues. And that was really interesting, the conversations around there. And then they all painted their background, and then they drew a self-portrait on top of that. And then we just collaged them all together. So this is our community. Look at the broad range of colours we all are. And that had the children talking about, well, we're all kind of the same, but we're all kind of different, but we're all just brown. We all are. We're just along the spectrum of it.
I think, for the understanding that we're all melanated. Some of us have less and some of us have more. And I think that, because we started off with brown. And it was kind of controversial. I remember us having that conversation. You know what I mean? Are we just going to put more white? Or, you know what I mean? It was a very controversial discussion between teachers. I'm like, so we all started off with brown, and then we either made it darker or made it lighter, right? So I think it took on its own life with the teachers also.
The staff have always been keen to tackle these things, but they are nervous, I guess is the right word, and unsure of the language and things like that. So helping them feel comfortable in the conversations we have I think has been the big challenge. So providing them projects like the Angelica Das project that comes with a structure and a framework and language to use has been really useful for them. But I think we're all a bit nervous at first, I guess, about making sure we're saying the right things, and how can we make sure that we support children to express themselves comfortably. I think Lorraine's very experienced with that, so she finds that, you know, really natural.
I think, so it's twofold for me. I mean, I'm dual nationality, so I've done my training in the States, I've worked in the States, and I've worked here. And it's always, I sit in a place of being the only one. So for me, that's challenging for me alone, right? So as a teacher and a person of color, being in a room and always having to, I don't want to say shoulder the burden of the diversity, that is kind of the weight for me. So the weight doesn't always look the same for everybody, you know what I mean? And me having those conversations and realizing that there's still a lot of work to be done.
Understanding who these children are. I think a lot of this comes down to, you know, what are you trying to teach, you know? And once we understand that and understand the children, then I think it becomes much more of an approach to really try and cater to each individual child, which is no easy feat, right? Let's not pretend like all I'm saying is really easy to do. I think it's extremely difficult. But this is why, you know, I think forming bigger networks and, you know, people who are making resources which can speak to certain experiences. And there's a lot more people who are speaking about different experiences now and helping us to understand that, you know, at 4 years old, every child in your class is not the same, you know. You know, they've had 4 years of different cultures, different foods, different musics. So to try and treat every child, even at 4 years old, the same is and then especially when you look at like 10-year-olds, 15-year-olds, it's, you know, there's so much more that they've experienced that, you know, we can't treat one just the same. Even if you've both got like grade 4 violin or something like that, right? Your experiences are still very, very, very different. So I think it is about, first of all, just really understanding who is in our class and what their needs are, and then using that as a starting point to kind of move forward. Because we can put great activities together, right? But if if no one identifies with Bach, but we want to try and, you know, modernize Bach or whatever, it's how much is that going to work, you know? So I think that's really something to think about what they need in that given moment.
I'm going to be honest with you. Emma and I have talked about this first. It's like, in order to be in that place, you have to look at yourself. You can't go anywhere until you take a good look at yourself and identify who you are, warts and all. And then you can be free enough to open yourself up to, okay, now I have to teach this to my children. I need to explore this with my children. And if you can't come from a place where I'm open and free, then it's just going to be tokenistic. And I think we need to stop and get away from being tokenistic. We need to look at things as, we want to break the cycle. We don't want to keep doing this, and this happened again for 500 years. We want to break the cycle now. So it has to be authentic, and it has to be really intentional work. And the work comes with you first and not outside. Like, you could change a book, you could pretend to do the work for the curriculum, but if you're not invested in yourself and your own growth, it doesn't make any sense.